Good morning, everyone. Yeah. I have a small challenge that in 20 minutes, I would like to convey 3 messages. The first one is that everyone leaves this room understanding what country branding stands for, because there are a lot of misconceptions on the topic. The second one is to give you a toolkit, guide you through 5 steps so you can understand what should be done to achieve a country brand strategy and hopefully successful. And at the end, we will make right here and right now a possible country branding strategy for Latvia. So the first thing I like to talk about is being on the map. This is clearly, for me, the best definition of what a country brand stands for. If you are not on the map, you don't exist. And it's not only about a physical aspect. It is about the mental perception people have about brands and countries. We can see here a person is, if I ask you, what do you think about Latvia? You might have different opinions, everyone here, but if you think about a touristic point of view, you might think about, we said before, the beach, vibrant life, Riga, and a lot of positive attachments. But if you think about investment, you might shift completely your ideas, and all those attributes that were good for tourism may be relevant from a trade point of view. So what this you can see here is our methodology. When we think about a country, and we believe that a brand can be useful for a country, they have 6 different dimensions. It's very important to think about a country from a tourism point of view, from a trade and investment point of view, the export promotion, the public diplomacy, the talent attraction, and the pride, which is very, very much tailored to local people. What is interesting is that every single area and dimension has a different stakeholder. And that is the first point I want to raise, how difficult it is to manage the expectations of all the stakeholders. And it's one of the reasons why the majority of the country branding efforts have difficulties. So this is clear now. You have to be on the map, and you need to convey what is called that central idea, which is what was in the middle of that arrow, that circle, which is which emotions do you want to trigger? Now the question is, okay, Gonzalo, that looks pretty simple, right? Or not? Can countries today brand themselves? Is this proactive approach still valid? I travel around the world, and people always ask, but France is already branded. Or Germany, it's about economy. And they are right, but there are a lot of countries in the world that require strategy. And that is the key to country branding. I believe that a lot of countries in the world, even these big countries, require a strategy. They need to think what they want to stand for. And of course, this is not built in one day, but that is very important that they have a vision. And some of the examples where we're here talking, they have put us through those the visions and case studies. So how are we going to do it? So I'm going to share our methodology. It is quite simple in a way. We need further research, of course, but you will see that you have to assess 5 different points to brand a country. The first one is you need purpose, and I think that is a very popular word today. Everyone is talking about the purpose, everyone is talking about leadership. Countries have to stand for the same thing. You need to understand what we were saying. What do you want to be known for? This central idea, these are emotions. These are those perceptions that the people have towards a country. And what is more interesting about this, and here I have another slide, is that it can be more than one. Because at the end, the country is more than one thing. And it is one approach that is a holistic approach, and there is another approach that every single dimension could have their own perception and their own strategy. You don't need to work them holistically. What is key is that you create a central idea that the stakeholders love, that the stakeholders of the country feel that is going to be useful and feel that is going to add value to the country and their strategies. The second point, focus. The world is very big. Here, for example, Latvia is a small country. Should you aim to target the world? I think that the world is big enough, it's very diverse, and you should have a strategy to a specific target audience. It can be 5, 10 countries, maximum 12, and these are the countries where you have to be relevant. You cannot believe that you can target the world, at least not at the beginning. Of course, if you talk about the US, if you talk about Brazil, if you talk about Russia, this may be the case, but for the majority of the countries, you need to stay focused. Once you understand, what do you want to talk about? What is that emotion and that central idea, and you know the audience, you need to communicate, you need to choose a channel. And that is where the majority of the misconceptions of country branding arise. If you treat it from a strategic point of view, you have right channels and not so right channels for specific countries. They have worked, and I will go through some examples where you can see strategies that went very well. But the first disclaimer I want to say is maybe a bit strong, is forget classic advertising. I don't want to talk about anything related to logos, slogans, or creating an advert in one of those important magazines or TV. I think that this is advertising. It's not branding a country. It has worked in the past for a lot of countries, but I think that today that model is in crisis. I don't think because you advertise with your nice and new slogan in a magazine, the people are going to change the perceptions or that the people are going to love you more for that. So what can countries do? So I'm going to guide you through 5, 6 examples of different ways to promote a country and to choose the right channel for you, with the good side and the not so good side. The first one is, can you brand a country through media? The answer is yes. You check The Economist, the Financial Times, they're always talking about their countries. Sometimes in a very good way, like 5 years ago with Brazil. It's taking off, everyone loved Brazil, all the money was going there, huge investments. But 1.5 years ago, suddenly the same magazine, which is The Economist, which is very respectful and quite ironic sometimes, puts the same country down there. And that, if you ask any Brazilian here, that I don't think there is any, I don't think they're happy with that. So what happened is that media, and especially this Anglo-Saxon media, they have their own agenda. And it's very difficult to fit. For some time you will fit, but most probably there will be a time they will come back and hate you. But you can also brand a country through the political leaders. I think that the Obama effect has changed a little bit into a positive way what we think about the United States. At least it's my personal opinion. The same way Mr. Putin and this conflict lately in Russia have moved, and I would say in a very not so positive way, the perceptions that the international community is having towards Russia and the Russian population. So again, the leaders have a role to play in the country brand, especially in the public diplomacy and on the pride. There are other ways. The Olympics, these events. We come here in Riga to close a year of the European capital. I still want to see the results, how successful this was, but with numbers. Because what happened here with Barcelona is a fantastic example of a strategy portrayed to brand a city through the event. And mark those words, because it was the right moment and the right time for Barcelona. And see how beautiful and astonishing is this picture. What is Barcelona today? Everyone knows it. Is, I would say, after London and Paris, one of the cities with the highest appeal and with a fantastic tourism and lifestyle future. But if we talk about London, which was the last Olympic Games, I think they were fantastic Olympic Games. Indeed, they were very inspiring, But I truly believe that they didn't help to run the city. I think there were fantastic Olympic Games, but that London didn't need them. London, 1 year, 2 years after, remains the same. Any single perceptions have been changed thanks to the Olympics. Another way, movies. Lately, Woody Allen is going all over the world shooting. She has becoming the target of the majors of the cities. They want a very nice movie in their city. This is fantastic. It has bump again Paris with that bohème feeling. In the past, Hollywood with California, San Francisco, New York even, has created a desire to go there. Of course, this is a more touristic point of view, but still, it is a good example. If you talk again about Brazilians and how movies related to favelas, crime, and corruption is helping them, they will not be as happy as Paris here. Another interesting way to brand a country is to flagship brands. And before we had an excellent example on how the perception of a country can be very much impacted by the image of, in this case, a bank, Banco Santander. The story of this bank is very interesting. It's a very small city in Spain that became #1 bank in Spain, and now it's globally, okay? Even going, I would say, shopping all over the world. Today, banks don't have a very high reputation, but this has done a great thing for Spain. And today, if we think about other flagship companies, we can talk about French companies, we can talk again about Brazilian companies like Petrobras, where corruption scandal is hitting Dilma Rousseff very hard. So again, countries have to look at their flagship brands because they can tag along the goodwill and also the bad will. Almost the last one, buildings. Okay, there was a time that every single city had an iconic building. Okay, it was very interesting to see how, in this case, Bilbao, in the early 90s, branded or started branded themselves through the Guggenheim Museum, thanks to Frank Gehry. Okay, after them, Norman Foster, Zaha Hadid did amazing buildings, but with diverse effect on other cities. There are now a lot of articles related to the new buildings that are in the Emirates. They call them white elephants, where they have strong doubts that the huge investment that they are doing there is returning and even branding those cities. And finally, this is an old example, but still I think it's fantastic. Who could brand in a better way than Sweden with that curators of Sweden? Who could give the power of their official communication through Twitter to the people? I can only imagine one country in the world, and that one is Sweden. There are fantastic social media campaigns, there are digital campaigns that can help to brand a country, and this one is definitely one of those. So we have covered the 3 points. Now let's go to the measurement. Here is where, as a professional, I want to talk about. You cannot do a strategy or create a brand and leave it there. You need to measure it. And politicians or even CEOs of companies are very much reluctant to go and measure the results. It is very important because country branding, it has a lot of intangibles. I disagree, but we could talk about that, this branding part, this emotional part, but you can measure it through perceptions. You can talk about if the perception index has changed, improved, what do people perceive when they consume certain products. But also, if you have money and your mandate is to invest to attract more tourists or attract more investment, you have to measure the results. And important, communicate it. It's nothing not to measure it. People need to know how the money was invested and what was the achievement that that country did. And my favorite one, of course, is digital. Okay? Today we're in a digital world. That is something, it's obvious. But we go online to do almost everything. And countries have the opportunity to start measuring their efforts through these channels. What if I tell you that Google is reporting that 67% of the people are looking for inspiration online prior to decide how or where to travel? That is a lot of people. I'm not talking about the people booking the hotels. I'm talking about the people looking for inspiration. And if you talk about investment, internet, what you find, the information there is the primary risk assessment source of information. And what is funny about it, that if you have a financial advisor, most probably he will do the same as you. So at the end, internet and the information that you find there is ultimately the source. And we believe that this is so important that countries, in this case, start to measure their efforts, that we have instigated a global project which is called Digital Demand. And we are today measuring what tourists want to do in a country, what investors value in a country from various points of views. And we're going to expand that to all our Bloom Consulting will, towards pride, investment, exports, and diplomacy. Last point, and I finish with this toolkit. You need to manage it, okay? You need 5 years or even more and a boss. And I have created that position, which is the Chief Country Brand Officer, that I don't think a lot of countries have. They have brand institutes or global institutes, but that's very important. But even though if you don't have it, there are the Foreign Ministry of Affairs, the Tourism Agency, the Investment Promotion Agency, who are already responsible, whether they like it or not, whether they do it in a proactive way or not, to manage the brand, okay? So these are the 5 points. I don't think it is rocket science. I think that, according to our experience, countries have forgotten to take that strategic approach as they should. So now, this slide is what I believe is happening, or has happened in the past, mostly, that the majority of the countries have failed to brand themselves. For the 5 reasons we were talking, or even because there is a lack of stakeholder involvement, or they chose the wrong strategy, they didn't know what to brand, and they were communicated in a wrong way, they chose the wrong channels, and they had a wrong or a not very accurate central idea. So there are a lot of reasons why country brand strategies don't fail. And one of them was the questions here in the audience you posed, is that they're very much attached to political leaders. And every 2 years, there is a new person coming in, and they change the strategy. So that is definitely one of them, which is a stakeholder embracement and a national identity attached to that idea. So let's finish the presentation with a positive note, and let's say how to create strategy for Latvia. We're going to do it for pride and diplomacy. So we're going to create something that the world or the international audience feels admiration and respect. That is what we're going to think about. And we're going to create that central idea with that objective. And if you talk about public diplomacy, what you may think is, okay, how do I do it, right? It's not so easy here in 5 minutes to start to think what Latvia could show respect and admiration from the world. So there are different topics that are, I would say, raw material to create those strategies. One is pride, progress, economy, environment. There are 6, lifestyle, culture, humanity. I'm going to give you an example so you understand, okay? It's very brief. It doesn't need to be long, this. If you talk about Iceland, you talk about green, okay? And you may have that perception, and green and renewable energies has been the way to brand the country. The National Energy Association reports that 99% is green, okay? And they have facts. No one, in theory, or at least the perceptions, will say the contrary. If you talk about lifestyle, how can you put a country in the map through lifestyle? And the case was Bhutan. If you know a thing about Bhutan, that might be that, the Gross National Happiness Index. And I don't know anything else, but that was enough. They used that strategy to brand themselves and put themselves in the map. And that is the example of a proactive strategy. So going back to Latvia, remember, we have pride and diplomacy. We want to target, let's say, Europe, the European community, and we're going to choose progress. okay? I think Latvia has a story there. Our previous speaker was giving some facts about Latvia. I think Latvia is a small country, and it has a lot of good things. And maybe me, or the company I represent, because we have worked in Latvia for the last years, from an outsider point of view, I can give you some hints on how we see Latvia and what we believe Latvia can offer to the world. As I said, despite being a small country, 2 million inhabitants, I believe that Latvians have a lot to say. I think they are smart people, very hard workers, and a willingness to stand out. I would say towards perfectionism. I think they have, and they strive to get better, okay? This is my perception, of course, and I think Latvians are an asset. I think that the macroeconomic indicators, as we were seeing before, the crisis, how they were growing prior to the crisis, how the crisis hit before any other country in Europe, how they recovered, what were the political will, what was the commitments, what were the actions that they put in place that is making Latvia today, for the third consecutive year, the fast-growing GDP country in Europe, with rates over 4% and in the past over 7%. I think that if you put how the Latvians approach the crisis, how Latvians are, the culture towards perfectionism and strive, and the willingness to communicate to Europe what you can do for them, I think we have the idea, which is, it is an idea to be the pioneers of Europe. I want Latvia to innovate, implement, support, and advise Europe on those matters. Wow. So I think that is very bold. I think that some people are looking at me like, how you're going to do that? You're crazy. I think we should aim high on this. And this is quite intangible, but our job is to make this a reality. And how we can do that? We're going to create an organization here in Latvia. It's going to be branded as the European Future Organization. It's going to talk about the future of Europe, such as the World Economic Forum is in Switzerland, in Davos, and it's talking about the world and economy and global issues. We believe that this organization could have this goal, and I'm going to read it so I don't miss any part of it. We believe that working side by side with the European Commission and all European nations, the objective of this initiative is to become the pioneer nation in Europe, for Europe, on how to design and experiment and implement policies for the progress of society. That would be the aim of that organization. What is interesting for Latvia as a brand, the European Future Organization is an initiative launched by the Latvian government that outlines the vision of the nation for the European future. That is your will. That could be your commitment. That could be something you could do. I know it's bold, but trust, this could work. And how to implement it. Thanks to this organization, you will be the center of discussion on how to put Latvia as the experiment, the test country for Europe. And you could create papers and white papers related to finance in Europe, internal deflation, a new financial concept that works, an initiative instigated by the European Future Organization in Latvia. This is a case study. I think we can work out a case study from the crisis. But even more in the future, if this organization is aiming to shape the future and talk about the future, I think that education in Europe is a topic. And we can say about web programming at elementary school, shaping the educational system. Again, an initiative launched by the Latvian government and this organization. I think this can happen. I think there is an opportunity. No one has taken this place. What is interesting is, thanks to this organization, the channel, the media channel that we all love, will automatically love us too. And I see Latvian organizations, the Latvian spirit on the New York Times. And again, you need to measure it and you need to have a face. And I think that thanks to international events and the government commitment, you can lead the process. This organization is our strategy. And I believe that doing this, and that's my final note, will position Latvia as the think tank for Europe. Thank you very much.